I'm in front of 15,000 fans all around this arena. Michael Buffer's there saying, "Let's get ready to rumble." I realized in that moment that the only reason I wanted to become this boxing trainer was just so that I could prove other people wrong. And it makes me emotional thinking about it, because when I got there and I looked around and I realized this wasn't my mountain to climb.
You have lived what it seems like 10 different lives.
Yeah.
So I want this episode to be like the guide for every young guy that is stuck at their job or their relationship or their life, completely going to a 180-degree change and transformation. You have done that. What advice do you have for people who are looking to just completely reinvent themselves?
I think the first thing you got to get clear is what you're trying to become. Who are you trying to become? And I think that's the first thing that you've got to get completely clear on. And the way to do that, simply, that I've found, is kind of, you can start by getting a journal out and just saying to yourself, right, on this page, who am I today? And on this page, who do I want to be? And you can see when you've got this journal out and you've wrote those two things and you've wrote the statement and you've wrote it with radical honesty, you can see, okay, right, this is where I am. This is where I want to go. What has to happen in the middle here to breach this gap, essentially? That's kind of the first place I would start now, in hindsight.
Did you do that?
That's not where I started, no, because I didn't know that in hindsight. I didn't have that information at the time. My key thing that changed my life was, like, I was in England. I was a carpenter growing up. I was swapping time for money. I knew there was more for life. I didn't know how to gain access to that, but I just knew there was more to life and there was more abundance out there. I just had to find a way to find out how to access it. The only way that I could see myself accessing it at the time was to change my environment. So the change that I made was I saved up all my money from working 2 jobs. I was working security at night, doing doors and around pubs and nightclubs, and I was working as a carpenter during the day and as a boxing trainer, and saved up all the money I made and all the cash, and doing cash jobs at the weekend and anything I could do to make £6,000 at the time. And I took that £6,000 and that roughly correlated to about 10,000 Australian dollars. And I got a year's visa to Australia, and I booked a one-way ticket and I went to Australia. And when I got to Australia, I realized, okay, I took myself away from all the friends that I grew up with, all the family preconditioning that was in my mind, so all your limiting beliefs and everything you believe in your life come from your friends, your family circle and everything else. So you've got to take yourself out of that environment, whether it's for a week, whether it's for 2 days, whether it's for a year. You have to take yourself out so you can look backwards and say, right, what was going on in that environment that doesn't support the narrative of where I want to go? By taking myself to Australia, I kind of took myself from middle class England, which is like, and just for context, I think middle class is the worst place to be, because it's so comfortable. You can have the 3 or 4 bedroom house. You can have the the BMW or the Mercedes on the driveway. You can earn half decent money, but you can never aspire to much more than that in the middle class, which is why it becomes such a tie to you, because you're locked into it at that level. Whereas if you come from poverty and have a really challenging upbringing, you've got nothing but up to go to. Yeah. You can't really go further down from that. You just want more and more and more. So when I got to Australia, I'm looking back in England, I was thinking, wow, like I can see all the traps that I was preconditioned to set up to. Getting into a mortgage early that ties you into this house that you in an area that you don't want to live, getting into cars on finance, credit cards, all this kind of stuff. I could look back and see all that clearly, but I couldn't see it in England at the time. So when I landed in Australia, landed in the Gold Coast, I was there and I was looking around, and I'd gone from grey, gloomy England, middle class environment to now affluent area of Australia where, multiple millionaires walking around, nice cars, beautiful women, beautiful scenery, great weather, great food. And I just realized in that moment, I was like, wow, this I can create from this start point something far greater than I could ever imagine I could have created from staying in the same location.
This episode is brought to you by the Headshot Crew. If you want to learn how to take the best headshots in the world, you can learn directly from my friend Peter Hurley. Check out the link in the description, and I'm sure you're going to love it.
So my advice to a lot of you that are listening to this is to, first thing you should look to do in your life, if you're looking to change your life in any way, the first thing you should look to change is your location, because it's your location that keeps you rooted. And some people might say, well, Axe, Frankie, like, how can I do that? I'm working in Panera Bread and I'm only earning $12 an hour and this, that, and the other. I guarantee you that everyone that watches this podcast has $1,000 car, has an iPhone, has this, has that. I'm just saying, whatever you've got to do to whatever you've got to sell that you're not using, or they probably have $5,000 worth of stuff lying around the house. Whatever you've got to sell in order to get a couple of $1,000s to buy the ticket to where you've got to go to, do that. Because when you buy that ticket and you make that commitment, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, finds a way to support the moves that you make, and things start to fall into place. Things start to drop in. Opportunities start to come. It's like, if you look at your life and how you've changed your life coming from Cuba and everything that you've done and everything you're doing now, and the fact that we're sat in this fantastic studio and the opportunities that you have in LA, they've come because you changed your environment.
Yeah, for me, traveling, the first time that I traveled outside of Cuba, I went to France to a film festival, and it happened in a very crazy way. I'd been trying for 3 years to get a scholarship to come to America and study film, and I couldn't get through. We couldn't get the visa, we couldn't get the paperwork, and I gave up on that. I completely gave up on that. I said, okay, like, it's not meant to be. I'm gonna stay in Cuba. I got married, and then I was just in Cuba, and I was gonna live my life there. And I entered this film. I made this film in a crazy workshop where we had to like shoot in 24 hours. We had to go out, shoot, edit, and like 48 hours later we had the screening. And Frankie, like 3 months later, I think 3-4 months later, I'm in France. Like, my film was opening at this film festival in Trouville, northern France. And that completely changed my life. When I went back to Cuba, I could not see the world small again. And I think that is something that happens to a lot of young people, because you grew up in whatever city you grew up, and all the people that you know are there. Even though you have social media and you see the TV and you see the movies, for me, the movies was like that window to like something else, but it was always like a dream. Like, it's the movies, it's not real. But I remember when I went and visited France and then I went back, it's like something had snapped in my brain and I had to leave Cuba. I would go and find a way to leave that country. And now I knew that it was possible. It's almost like you going to Australia and you see this entire new...
It's a stretch of the mind. So imagine you're like an elastic band. If you don't put it under tension and you don't stretch it, it's not going to obviously get bigger and be able to fit some of the stuff that you're trying to fit into it, right? It's same as your mind. Imagine your mind like that. You've got to stretch the capacity of your mind, and you've got to ask yourself, has my mind been stretched to its full capacity? Is the life that I'm living, is the reality that I'm existing in right now, is this the highest form of reality that I believe I can live? And I guarantee to a lot of people listening to this, they'll probably be sitting there thinking, no, there's a little bit more out there for me. There's a little bit more juice to be squeezed out of life. You know, you might be yet to find your purpose. You might, I don't know, but I guarantee you that if you sit there for long enough and you think to yourself, is there more for me? You'll say to yourself, potentially there is. Well, if that is the case, then surely it's your only sole goal on this planet is to expand your mind to a level that allows you to access the life that you so desire. And it's everyone's talking about, everyone gets caught up in the news and gets caught up in all the negativity around the world. The world is the most abundant place that you want it to be, if you choose to look at it through the right lens. Well, the beautiful thing about your life is that you get to choose how you create it, right? You really do get to choose what lens you look through it at and how you create your life. There's no one that can take it away from you. You have to look at it from the opportunity that you have. Well, if that's the case, then even if your reality that you're living isn't ideal, You can go into deep forms of deep state meditation. You can go into breathwork journeys. You can go into mushroom journeys. You can go into all kinds of these different spiritual practices where you can create the lifestyle that you want in your head. And then from that, it will manifest into your reality, because it's been proven on multiple people, multiple experts that this is the case. I mean, there's the CIA they've got a whole group of people that are just constantly trying to evolve something called mind traveling, where they go travel in their mind, and they use advanced meditation techniques to see if they can get ahead of time. There's a whole crazy, I read a crazy study about there's a whole group of people. It's obviously, some of it's classified information, but there's a whole study of people in the CIA that are constantly trying to extrapolate the power of the mind. So if agencies like that are trying to extrapolate the power of the mind, surely you can understand then that you've got enough power in your mind to create a reality in the plane that we're living in right now.
Yeah. For me, to be honest, Frankie, this whole meditation manifestation thing, that's something I don't rock with. To me, I don't believe in manifestation. I believe in execution. So that's interesting. I definitely want to talk to you about that and learn more, because I do agree that there is some elements of it that, because you start thinking about that, you start putting actions into place. And I think that is the missing link for me when I listen to so many podcasts and everyone talking about manifestation.
It's manifestation without action doesn't work. Just thinking about the thing doesn't bring it into your life. You have to take action towards the thing.
Yeah.
But everything, this whole reality of your life, where you've changed it to go from Cuba to where you are now and sitting in LA and everything you're doing and you're living your dream. Remember, this was a dream.
Yeah.
Right? You agree? Well, if this was a dream, how can it not be manifested then? If it was your dream, because when you dreamed about this, you didn't have it, but now you do.
Yeah. I think the difference was that I put in the work, man. There's so many nights that I stayed in that little office under the staircase of the church that I was working at, learning and working on my craft and learning how to do shit, and sleeping on the floor and waking up early and keep working on videos and keep learning how to, and making movies is very difficult. Now, I do agree with you. For me, it's tricky.
Maybe I think the word, because the word manifest has been over-indexed and overused.
Yes,
I think it's got a negative connotation to it, and I agree with you. Mm-hmm. I am not here by not taking action. I am here by taking radical action in every area of my life, and operating from a term which I mentioned earlier called radical honesty. I radically honestly look at my life, ask myself if that's what I want to be living in, and if that's the reality that I want to live in. And then if it's not, or there's things that are off with that reality and I want to change it, I go and change it. And by changing it, I take action. But you must agree that when you are taking action towards what you want along this journey, there are synchronicities in your life that drop in, opportunities that come because you're taking action.
Yeah, I think because you're driving a force and an energy towards that, you will, with time, just chip away so much that then everything kind of goes. It's almost like a tree, when you're trying to cut a tree and it's a massive tree, it's strong, it's not going anywhere, and you start chipping away at it, then the wind is going to help you. You tie a little rope and you pull, you have another guy pushing, and then you keep calling people on to get behind that, and eventually you knock the tree down. I think it is more like that. I'm just afraid that because of what you were saying, manifestations has been taking this magical connotation of, if you just wake up in the morning and you look at the mirror and you say that you're amazing and you're worthy,
that's not manifestation to me though, because that's without the action piece.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about the manifestation that is required under natural law, and the natural law of the universe as a whole is literally okay, if you want something, you can vision that something and then take action towards your vision. And that's to me what manifestation means to me. It's get the vision. You have to be able to see it before you can go and achieve it. Is what I'm saying. Most people that listen to this that aren't happy with their life say they're not happy, but then don't know what they want to go and achieve. because they haven't got clear on it. All I'm saying in terms of manifestation, all I'm trying to get everyone to do in this podcast is get crystal clear on what you want. When you get crystal clear on what you want, you can make the steps required relentlessly and execute towards your North Star. So you figure out what your North Star goal is. And when you figured out what the North Star goal is, you can move toward it. That is all I want for everybody. That is my description of what manifestation is. Pick the North goal, get clear on it, move toward it. You cannot not hit what you can't see. Do you know what I'm saying? That kind of mentality.
Yeah, I love that. So for you, how did you then start executing? And I was curious to know, how did you get rid of all distractions? Because in that case, you had to work like 2-3 jobs to save up this money. How can people do that? Because I think that is what keeping us away from actually progressing, you know?
So the pain for me at the time of staying in that current environment, the pain got to the point where the pain was like so intense for me if I stayed there, it felt like my soul was leaving my body. So I knew I had a higher calling in terms of what I was meant to be doing, and I wasn't living it. So I wasn't living an authentic life because I knew there was more for me, but I wasn't accessing it. So that it was simply the pain that pushed me to be able to transform my life. And I think it would probably be a similar thing for you. It's like, well, you know, there's not many opportunities for me in Cuba potentially. Mm-hmm. So it's probably what you're thinking. So I want to radically change my life, and maybe that was the push that you needed. That was certainly the push that I needed to leave England, because I just saw it as I could not progress there any further. So that was what really the core thing that called me forward. And I think that's one thing I want everyone to understand from this is like, you will get to a point in life where you will get this call to move forward, and the call to move forward is where it gets so painful and soul destroying to stay in your current reality that you live in and keep going through the gears in. It gets so painful to live there that you have to make a move. You have to make a move.
Yeah.
And it's like, what move do you want to make? What move would you like to make?
That's awesome, dude. So in this case, how did you then land in Australia? Did you knew anyone? Did you had a plan? Did you had like a place to live, a job? Like,
so I booked 3 weeks accommodation. I went over there with a friend he stayed the first couple of months, then he left. We both got jobs inside the first 4 weeks. But here's the thing. I had $10,000 and a bag of clothes, a pair of boxing gloves, landed in Australia. I had 3 weeks accommodation booked. I spent $4,000 on a car. I spent $2,000 or $3,000 on tools so that I could become a carpenter again. I couldn't get a carpentry job. So I got a job as a tiler's assistant. It was $22 an hour as a tiler's assistant. I had to drive about 40, 50 miles to the job every day, right, for 3 or 4 weeks. And every week, I was meant to get paid weekly, and every week the guy that was meant to pay me said to me, I'll pay you at the end of the job, He got to the end of the job after 3 weeks. So now I've been in Australia for 6 weeks. I've got no money now because I've spent $4,000 on the car, $2,000 or $3,000 on the tools. The other $2,000 or $3,000 has been taken on food and living and seeing a few sites, etc., that you would do when you're a young man, 25, 26 years old. Now I've got no money. Now I'm broke because he didn't pay me. So now I'm like literally like at the point at 26 years old where I'm like, I can't feed myself. My mate's not got no money because he's not been paid yet. He's facing a similar thing. We're both there like, wow. We've left England. We've worked 2 or 3 jobs. We've worked all our weekends. We swapped all the time for all the money that we could grab hold of in that time. We're now living in this new reality that we've created and living in. And now we can't even feed ourselves. We're at the point where we have to reach out to our mums to say, lend us $1,000. That is kind of, and you want to quit, but you can't, because you know that on the other side of this, there is something bigger, there's something greater. So I found another job, and I lived that week on a loaf of bread, right? Peanut butter. That was my main stuff, peanut butter and bread. and then just apples, right? That's how we were living for a week until we got paid.
Did you get all ripped?
You
got super skinny.
I was still going to the gym and all that stuff. It's actually a really good diet if you choose to follow it. But I got a labour hire job, which is I was working as a carpenter, fitting out shops, fitting out Zara's, Louis Vuittons, all that kind of stuff. And that was a pinnacle point for me because I was working hard in that job, and the Spanish architect of the store saw my work, and they gave me the contract to go around the whole of Australia fitting out these stores. So from a bad situation, I had turned it into a job where I'd gone from $22 an hour to $35, and then because the architect had seen me after the first week and he wanted to keep me, he paid me $55. He paid me $55, the travel allowance and everything else to go around Australia fitting out all these stores. Wow. And it was a 6-week contract. So that 6 weeks working 12-hour days, 14-hour days, because long days in those kind of jobs, 7 days a week, plus allowances, plus this. At the end, I had tens of thousands of dollars at the end of 6 weeks. And that was the thing that changed my life, because I'd never seen that much money before. I'd never seen that much money. I left England. When I left England, I was getting paid equivalent to like $12, $13 an hour. So now fast forward, I'm getting paid $55 an hour, and it's all I'm getting all the allowances for tools, all the allowances for all the hotels were paid for, all the food was paid for, everything was paid for. So I was just absolutely soaking in all this money, and then I looked in my bank account one day and I think I had like $35,000 or $40,000. Wow. And that day changed my life, because I was like, wow, that I've just earned a year's worth of money in 6 weeks. How big would you think right now, everyone listening, if you thought that your year's wages you could earn in a week, 6 weeks, 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. How big would you think? How abundant would you look at the world? That showed me everything I needed to know about what could be achieved in life. Because I'll fast forward a bit further down my journey now. I was a carpenter. I did that for a while. I earned good money, but I was really unhappy. I was working long hours. So one day I thought to myself, I've got to do something else. So I decided that I'd go into sales. I had a mentor that was I had a boxing gym on the side of shop fitting. So I was doing shop fitting. I had a little boxing gym, little garage set up, just doing one-to-one with people. Never earned me more than a few $100s a week, but it just to keep me involved in my boxing training and stuff, and to keep my mind active. Mm-hmm. When I was doing it, a businessman walked into my gym. This is what I mean when I talk about the universe, how the universe brings people to you. His name was James. He took me under his wing. After about 6 sessions working with him, he was severely overweight, and I helped him lose all this weight. Probably lost about 10 stone with me, right? When we were talking through the sessions, I realized that whilst I was coaching him doing pads, he was coaching my mind and educating my mind to think bigger, to be bigger, teaching me about books, about finance, about business, about this, all while we're on the pads in between rounds and stuff like that. He was telling me things, planting seeds. Frankie, have you ever do you read books? He'd say to me, and I'd be like, no, I've never read a book. He says, maybe you should start. Here's a book, Think and Grow Rich. Here's a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Here's a book. You know what I mean?
He gave you the good ones too.
He started to give me these good books. I started to read them. These books was like firing me up. I realized after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad that I was trading my time for money. I realized after I read Think and Grow Rich that I wasn't thinking big enough, that I was thinking small. I said to him, if you were me, what would you do? I don't have enough money to start the business I want to start, this and the other. He said, the best skill you could learn is sales. Learn how to sell, it will change your life, because it's uncapped. It's the only job in the world that has uncapped potential for you to earn revenue. You start selling windows, you could start selling cars, and then you could sell houses, or you could sell premium software, you could sell anything. But once you know how to sell, you can sell yourself. You can sell You know, when me and you are contacting guests and we're trying to book guests for podcasts, we are selling ourselves to the potential guest that we are a good podcast to come on.
Yeah.
Sales is everything. So I went and tried to apply for a few sales jobs and didn't get them. And then he offered me a sales job. He said, I'll take you on for a sales job. He took me on for this sales job. I was with him a week. He gave me these scripts and he told me how to do it. And he trained me, and I was just hopeless. And I got sacked. He sacked me after about a week to 14 days. He sacked me, right?
So your own mentor was I'm going to hire you.
So my own mentor hired me and fired me. But I resented him. I fully went into resentment. But here's where it gets better. He sacked me because I wanted to do it off talking normally to people and just having a relationship with people. He wanted me to sell off a script. He sacked me. I didn't speak to him. I was so angry. I felt resentment. I felt all these emotions towards him. I didn't realize in that moment that he had done me the biggest favor of my life. My friend gave me a copy, a pirated copy actually. So thank you, Jordan Belford, of Jordan Belford's straight line selling system, right? And I watched it and I just absorbed all this over a week. And I met someone in the gym, a friend of mine in the gym, and he's like, I've always liked you. I've always got on well with you in the gym. Why don't you come work for me? And I went and worked for my mate. Inside 30 days, 14 to 30 days, I was the top salesman at that company. The other guys collectively were selling 30, 40,000 of this reputation management a month. In the first month of doing reputation management, selling reputation management over the phone, it's like helping brands clean up their online presence and all that kind of stuff. I sold 150 grand, right? I just learned how to sell off this course by Jordan Belford, literally, that was given to me by my mate. But my mentor taught me a big lesson because he's like, the world will pay you what you're worth. And I was worth nothing to him because I couldn't sell what he was selling. So he taught me that lesson vicariously by sacking me. Because on the exit interview, he's like, look, you're going to resent me, Frankie, for this. I'm going to sack you today. I'm going to let you go because you cannot, I don't think you've got what it takes at this moment in time to do it, right? I know that you have it in you, but I think you need this in order to go and find it. That's kind of what he said to me on the exit interview. I still resented him, but it lit a fire under me, another fire. And then I went and learned the art of sales. And when I learned the art of sales and learned the art of communication, which is a skill that me and you have been working on for the longest time, when I learned that art and how it worked, it changed my life again. Because now I'm gone from earning 8 to 12 grand a month to now being able to earn 30,000 a month, you know, more if I wanted to work more hours, if I got enough leads. If I got enough leads coming in, I can convert them. And it's like that was a pinnacle moment for me and a pinnacle skill. I want everyone in this audience to know that the difference between where you are and where you want to be is just stacking skills to take you between here and here, you know? So you're going to have to learn a bit of sales, a bit of marketing, a bit of personal development, self-belief, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You put it in your tool belt, you take it to the next thing, You're stacking skills the whole time, going through the motions, moving up the gears, changing the levels. Everything's about, you know, what can I learn here? What can I learn from this situation? And you might think a situation is bad, but if I hadn't have been let go of that job, I would have never ever, I don't think I would have ever got to where I am right now.
Yeah.
Because it gave me that hunger. Because I've always found more hunger on the side of the adversity. It's like on the way to this podcast, I got a text and I've got this mastermind. I was telling you, I've got this mastermind I'm going to host in Australia. And at the moment, I'm thinking this mastermind is going to be going to be cancelled, and you know, I might have lost quite a few of my speakers, and this event's going to not happen anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, that's going to cost me thousands of dollars, thousands. But what opportunity can I create off the back of that falling through? Can I stay in the US now a bit longer? Is there some more interviews that I can do? Is there more people that I can get onto my podcast? Is someone making space for me to expand here? Is it the negative that I think it could be, or is there a positive in this? That's what I want everyone to understand, is that there's nothing negative that's happening to you in your life. It's your perception of your reality that you're living. Yeah. And that's what I want people to get.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, Frankie, is that is a skill. That is something that you actually train for, and you get used to it, and you practice, and you get better. I have learned that by making movies. So the worst thing you could do is, when you're on set and something goes wrong, if you go straight to like, oh, this is a failure, this is not going to work, that's it. You hit a wall, and then there's nothing. For us, like, it's guaranteed that something will go wrong. So it's something very interesting that I try to apply to my life, that I learned from making movies, is on set, everything will go wrong. But once you say, okay, we're on set and we're doing this, then you just have to go. So the script has to change, the actor has to come this way, and the camera comes over this way. You turn yourself into like a problem-solving machine just by accepting that things are going to go wrong.
Well, it's simply this. I mean, look at your whole LA experience. You wanted to become a film director. You wanted to become the film guy, right? You had to put yourself in LA to become the film guy. There is no other place in the world you have to be if you want to become a top director, a top video guy, you have to be in LA. You have to be. If you want to be a top podcaster, you have to have the ability to be in Dubai, Texas, Austin in Texas, and also in LA. You have to have the ability to be in those locations. Otherwise, you're not going to be a top podcaster. The reason you couldn't get to the top is because all the top guests and all the top hosts and all the top insights are in these locations. So every niche and everything that you want to do has a predetermined location that you have to be around that ilk of people. You have to be in that energy to be able to get to the level you want to get to. So you have to be able to put yourself in the situation. Well, you might not be able to put yourself in the situation day one because you might not have the means to do it. But if you start finding out what that North Star goal is for you, start to walk towards it, then you might be able to start to jog. Then you might have to slow down and walk for a few more steps. Then you might get a little sprint on and have some good results. Then you might have to go into the marathon again. Then you might have to step into a walk, and then you might get another sprint. And that is what life is. Yeah. That is the epitome of life. You didn't just decide one day to go from Cuba to LA. You went from Cuba to France, back, think about it, do this, do that, put this in place, move that around, work that job, do this, do that. Eventually you got to LA. Right? LA was always the goal for you. It was always the North Star. It was always the place you knew you had to end up if you wanted to make it in this game. But you couldn't just walk there. You couldn't just step there. You had to take the path of the winding road that every human has to take. And we all have a path that's winding, that's long, that's got ups, downs, troughs, everything between it. We all have that path. Yeah. I want everyone to get away from this thing where they say they're self-made. Nobody is self-made. Somebody put you on and gave you an opportunity. Someone's put me on and gave me an opportunity. James Gray, that came in my boxing gym as a 10 stone overweight man, gave me the fundamentals that I needed to change my life. Without that man walking in my boxing gym, I would not be sat here with you today. 100%. And it gives me just chills even speaking about it, because I would never have I would have never have started reading books. I never would have opened my mind. I never would have gone into sales without that man walking into my life. Why do I tell you that? I tell you that because there's someone somewhere, when you start to figure out what is my goal and this and the other, when you start to walk, you'll bump into someone when you're walking. You can't bump into someone to give you an opportunity if you're not already walking in the direction that you think you may have to go. Yeah. And often the direction you think you have to go at the start changes too. So I'm not telling anyone on this podcast that if you're deeply unhappy in your situation today, that you can find out exactly what you're meant to do in 5 years' time and make a clear straight line plan towards it. No, what you write down and what you think you want to do today will be totally different from the reality that you end up manifesting. But I guarantee you that when you start walking towards what you think you want, people will align, and the world will test you. It'll say, right, do you really want this? Are you willing to sacrifice everything for this? We'll give you a hand here. We'll take something away there. We'll give you a little boost here. We'll give you an opportunity here. This is a curveball. We'll throw it at you. This is what happens. This is life. This is the zest. This is what we're on the planet for. It's a learning curve.
Yeah.
You know, nothing's given.
It's a story, man. It's like a movie. I have a friend of mine that when I was going through like some really bad times in my life, my best friend, we moved in together, and he had this charming way of just accepting that bad shit was going to happen. To me, and I was telling you before the show, I used to struggle with that a lot, because being a director, like, my job is to make things happen, is to have a vision and move this here. Like, as a producer, you put things in place and then you make it happen. But it's really hard to produce your life, even when you're trying. But I remember my friend tells me all the time, Abraham, he's like, well, just decide what story you want to live, and let's just see what the story is. And man, that's something that I'm learning. I think I've gotten a lot better, because it's a weird, crazy story. And the moment you enjoy that story that you're living and that little piece that you're putting here and there, it gets a lot easier. Life gets a lot more fun.
Well, don't try and fight life. I'm not saying let all of life happen to you, but you got to flow with it. You got to flow with it. You got to try and stop battling against it. It wants to take you where it needs to take you, because there's a lesson there for you to learn, you know? And when you take mushrooms, for argument's sake, and you go on a mushroom journey, many of you might not have experienced that listen to this podcast, but I've been on a couple of mushroom journeys with shamans and been on this kind of spiritual path and to learn more about myself. With a mushroom journey, you think to yourself, I'm going to take this hero dose of mushrooms guided by this shaman, and I'm going to go to where I think the problem is in my life and figure it out. And you get taken to a totally different place, and you see yourself in a totally different light, and you see the real problem, not the problem you thought you had, the problem below that or above that or around that, or something completely different that alleviates that. What a lot of humans think their problem is and what their actual problem is are two different scenarios. And many people think a lot of their limits are money, opportunity, this, that, and the other, and they're not. They think it's the limit of money, of opportunity. But the truth is, you can create an opportunity by walking into the right coffee shop. You can create an opportunity by bumping into some guy at a house in LA. Like, you can create an opportunity. It's not your limiting thing. Your limiting thing is your mindset towards what's happening in your life, your mindset to perception of something is bad versus something is good. You should just be nonplussed on whether something's positive or negative. It's like that. The phone. Go back to the example of this phone call before this podcast for me. Mm-hmm. Is it positive? Is it negative? Axel, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I couldn't tell you, but I tell you one thing about it. It's meant to happen. Whatever happens on that phone call is meant to happen. So here's the way I framed it. If my mastermind is cancelled, I'm obviously meant to be in Dubai or LA, right? If it's not, I'm obviously meant to be in Australia for the next 3 weeks or a month. I'm not bothered which, because I'll let the world figure that out. I'll just flow with the game that it's giving me, and I'll flow with it. But the one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to take my vibrational state in my mind down to a low vibrational state by putting myself in fear, anger, doubt, uncertainty. I'm not going to live there, because it's by keeping yourself in that low vibrational state that you can't elevate and open your mind to the world of opportunities that you have. I will create opportunity wherever I land. Wherever I land, I will create opportunity, and I will make it as abundant as possible. If I landed in Sarasota today, I could create a podcast. I could find a studio. I could find a way to make money. I could do something.
Yeah. And those are usually the things that end up working out the best. Isn't that crazy?
Absolutely.
Like even us here now, like we're moving, we're in between studios. We didn't have a place. Like this wasn't even in the books.
Yeah.
Like you just texted me out of the blue. Hey, I want to be in LA like this week. And then we just made it happen, and like it works. So that is a beautiful thing that I'm learning to accept that more in my life.
You reached out to me a long time ago, and the timings just weren't right. I was in Australia, or I was in Dubai, or I was in London, or somewhere else. I was traveling around doing podcasts. It just didn't work. Yeah. But when the timing was right, it works.
Yeah.
Right. And people are trying to force timings. You don't need to force the timing. Yeah. You just need to take the daily steps towards your goals. And this might be hard for a lot of people to hear. But if you sat there, if you're sitting there on your car on the way to work this morning, or you're listening to this walking in the park, or you're in the gym right now, ask yourself just about today, have I taken the steps towards the greatest version of myself today? Have I done that? Do I even know what I think the greatest version of myself looks like? If you say no to either of those questions, you're kind of in this, what I call holding pattern. There's a holding pattern to life where you kind of spin your gears, spin your wheels, think about things, let things flow around, all this kind of stuff. It's a bit woo-woo. It's a bit, oh, yeah. That's not where you want to be. Where you want to be is like, I've made the decision that I want this kind of life. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I think by walking towards this and this and this, that it could lead me there. And if not, I'll figure it out. But at least you have a plan. The people that don't have a plan to fail. You plan to fail. You can't hit a target you cannot see. You'll 100% miss every target you haven't, even if you haven't scheduled a target, you'll miss it every time, every day of the week. So at least have one. If you find out, like I did, that some of your targets are where you've lent your ladder against the wrong wall in life, so what? That's a lesson. That's a beautiful lesson in itself. I'll give you an example. I was a professional boxing trainer, one of the youngest in British boxing history. I spent 6-7 years qualifying, doing all the stuff, working with boxers, working my way up. I get to the pinnacle event, a world title fight, WBO World Title, Jeff Horn versus Gary Cochran. I was in Gary Cochran's corner. So picture the scene. I walk into the ring with the fighters. I'm stood there. This is my dream. I'm in front of 15,000 fans all around this arena. Yeah, the fans are going crazy. It's on 4 channels in the USA. It's on 1 in the UK. It's on 1 in Australia. It's a mental environment. You know, Michael Buffer's there saying, "Let's get ready to rumble." All this is going on, right? Everything. This is my dream. This has been my dream since I was a child to experience this. I knew I wasn't talented enough as a boxer, so as a trainer was my only hope to do this. As he's announcing the fight, and as he's looking out, as I'm looking out at the crowd, my eyes kind of glazed over, and I realised in that moment I'd spent my whole life with my ladder leant against the wrong wall. And you'll say to me like, why is that then? Well, I realised in that moment that the only reason I wanted to become this boxing trainer, and the only reason why I wanted to stand, and the only reason why I wanted to do this, was just so that I could prove other people wrong. So how many people are going through life thinking that they've got this vision, thinking that they've got this dream, thinking that there's something that they should do, that they've got to do, and they go and they chase it and they chase it and they chase it and they chase it and they push. and they get to the pinnacle event in their life and they realize their whole life, their ladder has been leant against the wrong wall. The ladder you have been climbing, the ladder you've been stepping up rung by rung. You get to the top of it and it's not your thing. It's not your purpose. It's not what you're here for. That moment in 2017, December 2017, that moment blew my life apart, because I was like, I can't unsee what I've just seen. You cannot unsee that. So it's important that a message for me to get out to everyone that listens to this, Axel, is like, make sure that the thing that you pursue in your life that you think is going to radically transform it in all areas, make sure that that goal isn't to prove anyone else wrong. Make sure that goal isn't, to make up for a lack of love from a parent. Make sure that goal isn't to hide a wound of your past. So whilst you're setting out your vision, when you have what you think is your vision written down, okay, I'm Frankie Lee, I want to be the top educational podcaster in the world. I want to help people break patterns, flip perspectives in their life, and this, that, and the other. Why? Why do you want to do that? Well, I want to do it because I feel it. Why? Okay, because I want to, but why? Okay, but why? Ask yourself 3, 4, 5 whys, and you get to the core, real reason that you want to do it. Why you want to have an impact, why that means so much to you. You know what I mean? And then when you get to that real core reason, you can bed yourself into that and you can step off it. You can step off rock. You cannot step off sand. Most people in their life are trying to step forward by stepping off a sand step that they've put down for themselves. And if you step off a sand step, your feet will sink into it. And then the next one, the feet will sink into it. And you'll find you're getting nowhere in life, but you think you're getting everywhere. And that's what boxing training was to me. It was just to prove to the world, to everyone else, that I was enough. Well, I could have done that by meditating and healing wounds that were from my past. I could have done that by healing the relationship with my mother. I could have done that by so many other things. I didn't have to do that. There was nothing to prove, is what I'm saying. And a lot of you that listen to this podcast have nothing to prove to anyone else either. And let me tell you, no one gives a fuck about what you think you got to prove. Life's not even about that. Don't worry about proving stuff to other people. Just worry about getting as close as you can to your authentic self.
That's powerful, Frankie. Thank you for sharing them, and that means a lot that you are honest enough to share that. It's like I didn't know any of this. I thought, like, when I read about your boxing and all that, I was like super excited to like even get into that and learn about that, because I've been boxing and learning how to fight, but I never thought that you would experience it that way. And that's something that I was afraid of that on my own with film in Hollywood and getting here to Hollywood. And I was always afraid that I would get here and it would be shallow and it would be meaningless. And I'm grateful that, to me, the thing is the stories. Like, I'm not excited about a red carpet or like winning an award. All of that is fun and I want to do it, but like, I'm excited about the story. And for me, when you were talking about the why, and before on the show we were talking about how long have you been doing the podcast and why do you do it and all that, for me it was always about having the conversations with people and like being able to get these little moments where like you can tell me about something personal and I can understand it, and just by talking about it, it's almost like therapy. Like, you get to explore yourself, like what you believe, what you think, and that has kept me from like keep doing it even when, and this, like, sometimes we do the interview and it looks cool, like, and everyone wants to do a podcast because it is the cool hip thing to do. But when you do that interview and you spend like 6 hours editing and then you post it and you get 34 views, like,
Takes your soul, doesn't it?
Yeah. But to me, it doesn't matter.
But I fell in love with the art of podcasting.
Yeah.
And I was very clear. My why statement for my life and for my podcast is to help people break patterns and flip perspectives so that they can have more clarity and success in their life, business, and everything else. When you've got a clear statement of intent and it means so much to you on a heart-based level, it's very easy to execute on it. Mm-hmm. It's very easy for you to do podcasts. It's very easy for me to do podcasts because we actually understood from the start the core reason why we do it. Many of the podcasts, 90% of the podcasts that we see in the marketplace at this moment will not last, will not be around in 5 years, 10 years, even 1 year from now. Yeah. There are many people in podcasting at the moment that are blowing up that will be gone in 12 months. Not because they can't do well, it's because they're not even meant to be podcasting. And I can see it and I can hear it in what they say, the questions they ask, how they prepare. I can just tell because I love the art. And when you love it, you can see other people that love it and other people that don't love it. Yeah. And that tells you everything you need to know about it. That's why do not play a game for a day that you wouldn't play for 10 years. Mm-hmm. If you can't play it for 10 years, don't play it for a day. Use Warren Buffett's analogy of investment, but use it in your life to what you invest time in. You know, if you wouldn't be with that girl in a week's time, why would you be with her today? Like, you know, invest in people, you know, the same way that you invest in yourself, you know. It's so important because you've got a limited amount of energy resource, especially as a man coming up with all these distractions, whether it be narcotics, the drugs, whether it be the nightlife, whether it be the alcohol, whether it be the women. You've got all these distractions coming at you. And you've got to be able to discern what it is that you should be doing. The closer you can get to having a why statement, a purpose. Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, is a great one for all of you to go and read, to kind of figure out a why statement for yourself, something that resonates, something you can feel into. And it's not your why statement unless you can feel it. When you talk about it and you feel the goosebumps on your arm go up, that's when you know you got it. Because that's when you know you're talking to your core self, not your egotistical self, your core self. Get that straight, get that understood in your life. When you understand that, you can build on it. And like I say, you can go up the steps of life knowing you're pursuing something meaningful, or at least knowing that if you pursue something along that aligns with your why, you know you're going to end up somewhere near where you're meant to be. Whereas people that go without a why, go without understanding what they're about, they just trudge through life and end up not exactly where they want to be, or end up in a place that is not as desirable to them.
Yeah. Or worse, like you end up not being authentic and not doing like who you really are, which I think that's what happens a lot with the podcast. It happens to me sometimes, like even like in the middle of this interview, in my head, I'm running like 3 different questions that I could take the interview to. And I'm thinking of the fucking thumbnail headline for the clip that my brother can clip out later, and whether that is going to go viral or not. And like, I'm competing in my own brain with like what I know about the game and the business. Cause I do work for another massive podcast, and we're always analyzing everything. And I'm also trying to like, just shut up, Axel, and like, just shut up your own brain and just listen.
Just be the way I operate with podcasts is, see, I'm not thinking of that. Mm-hmm. I've got to the point after 150 odd episodes where I'm like, I'm just here right now. I'm with Axel right now. Mm-hmm. I'm not thinking about another interview I got this afternoon, or you know what someone else is doing, or anything else, or what's going on with. I'm not even thinking about what's going on with my mastermind or anything like that. Yeah. I brought that up as something to just give the audience an insight into what can happen in your life and the curveballs you have to do. But I'm just fully present in the conversation, and what is meant to be here is meant to be here. What's meant to come out for this audience is meant to come out. You know, what the value that's meant to be exchanged, the feelings, the stories, everything that's meant to be shared is shared in that moment, and it's right as far as I'm concerned. And it's just about being fully present in that moment, in yourself and in alignment.
Yeah, it takes practice to do that. And what you said about the ego, that's something that is very important, that I think we all have it. And especially like just you and me, for us to say, I matter enough that I'm going to put on a show and I'm going to interview people and I'm going to build this online presence. And I'm going like, we have big egos. Like, you cannot deny that. Like in our case, I feel like with you, like I feel your presence and your energy, that you have an ego that is wrapped in light. Like, you want to matter because you honestly want to be of impact
service,
to other people.
of service.
Yes.
So like the only reason I do this is to be of service to others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm answering a call from a higher place to do this. Like, there's so many easier things that I could do to make money. I could live a quiet life. I could live, but I feel like I'm put on this planet to communicate.
Yeah.
That's what I feel I'm put here for. I feel like I'm meant to bring light to the world in some respect.
Yeah.
So I would be cheating myself and cheating the world if I didn't come what I've come to do, what I think, as far as I'm aware, that I was brought here to do, which is to get people to break the patterns of their past so that they can move towards a more vibrant future.
Yeah.
Break patterns, flip perspectives in every area of their life. And I want to help everyone of this audience do that. And I just want to question every narrative in their life and everything that they've thought that they know, and ask you, where do you think that came from? Did that come from your mother? Did your mother precondition you about money? Did your father make you wary of all men? Did your mum's story about your father leaving make you think that all men are bad? Where did the story come from? Is it your story? Should you continue to own a story or a narrative in your life that disempowers you if it's not even your own? I'm asking you those questions on this podcast. Subconsciously, I'm planting the seeds that make you ask those questions. Throughout this whole episode, I've planted them. Yeah. Some of you, I'm openly transparent about why I'm planting them as well, because you, as a human, come to this earth like a TV remote control. You have a lot of buttons that on this TV remote control that people can press. And when people press the button on that remote control, they press it and they get this reaction. And your whole sole goal on this planet, whilst you're a human being and whilst you're living here, your whole goal is to remove as many buttons that people can press and get a reaction out of you. Because where someone can get a reaction out of you, you are not fully healed. And that tells you everything you need to know about you. So, for argument's sake, if a woman says something over here and I react in the same way every time, that is a button that can be pressed. And any female in the world, whether she knows it or not, can press that button and get a reaction out of me. So it doesn't show me anything about the woman. It shows me something about myself. Yeah. Something about myself that needs healing. Some place in myself that I don't entirely feel comfortable. What I would like from this audience is for everyone in this audience to start answering the questions that are the hardest for them to answer and say, are these feelings, are these narratives, are these views my own? You were brought into this planet with no political alignment, with no alignment to a football team, with no alignment to a country or anything like that. You none of that existed. That's all been created and cocooned in that. You know, you could have quite easily gone through your whole life thinking that because you were Cuban, that life had to be harder because you were Cuban. Who told you that story? Your parents?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely believe that for sure.
But does it have to be your truth forever?
No, and actually, I lived that story my first few years in America. We used to be proud of going to Goodwill to buy cheap shoes. And like, we were so proud that, oh, well, people over here are buying this clothes. I can buy this secondhand used pair of tennis shoes that cost me like $10. And I was proud of that. And it required me having some experiences to see wealth, to see people with money, to see abundance like you were talking about, to experience a complete different story. Like in the same city, you can have in one block, people think one way and they experience life in one way, and in another block, it's completely different.
Yeah, you are living a less of a reality than you deserve because you've preconditioned to think that is how you should exist. Because Most people have never questioned every narrative and every story in their life and asked themselves, do I truly own this? So the way that I want everyone to do this is to start writing down all the common stories that you tell yourself. Okay, one of them could be, I'm not good enough. Okay, why? Where did that come from? Who told you that? Oh, your teacher when you were 6 years old told you that that wasn't good enough, and you've took that as fact, and you've planted that seed, and now every time that someone says, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. So you've took a story, you've took someone else's story, and you've grown this seed into a tree in your mind until it takes over your narrative, until someone says this and you say this now. It's like we mentioned before the podcast, you said I could swear, you said I could do this, I could do that, I can say what I want here. And I said, what did I say to you? Axel, I am working to deconstruct the programming of the swearing. Where did the swearing come from? It came from the boxing gym. It came from carpentry. But what I've learned in life is I don't need to say all these swear words. I can articulate myself with good language. But I was just putting those words in instead of pauses, because I had to feel like I had to say something. Mm-hmm. Who taught me that? Well, that was taught to me from people that weren't trying to get the best out of themselves, that weren't trying to elevate. So why would I continue to take that conditioning further forward? Yeah. It's like everything, question it. It's like, there's so many things I want to elevate in my life that I have to question. Sometimes I didn't wear a suit to this podcast today because sometimes when I wear a suit, I feel awkward. It's like, okay, where did that first come in then? Mm-hmm. That's a question I'm asking myself today. Why do you feel awkward when you dress nicely in a suit? Where does that come from? And I'm slowly working out, okay, that I remember where that came from. Oh, that isn't even the truth. Yeah. That's someone else has planted that in me, and now I can't operate in that. And I'll go buy a suit and I'll dispel that myth. Do you understand? Yeah. So I'm not sitting here today telling everyone on this podcast that I'm the full, healed, rounded article. No, I've got a lot of buttons on my remote control that people can press and still get reactions to. But it's a damn sight less than what I started with. And that's okay, because I'm moving towards being as rounded version of Frankie Lee as I possibly can. And I just want you to move forward to be the best Axel that you can be, and I want your brother to move towards the best version of himself, and I want everyone on this audience to just be open to the fact of, like, question every narrative that you've been told, question every political stance that you've been indoctrinated to take, question every belief, question every pattern. Why do I do this? Why? Where did it come from? Who taught me that? Yeah. Because it's the difference between rights. There's no rights and no wrongs, but we're taught right and wrong. There is no rights and wrongs. I mean, obviously there's the obvious ones, which is like, be kind to thy neighbor, don't steal other people's property and stuff like that. That are like the biblical, that are the spiritual, that are the natural laws of the universe type laws. But the fact that Frankie Lee can't wear a suit without feeling awkward right now, that story's been implanted. That's not the truth. That's not the truth. I know I could wear a suit now. Yeah. I realized that when I walked in. I thought, I know I can wear a suit, but before I go and get one again, where did that belief come from that I couldn't? Yeah. Because someone put that there. That wasn't put there by me. I've took it on, but it wasn't planted by me. Someone said something along the lines of, oh, you shouldn't wear a suit, you should casual it up. Someone said that to me, or something along those lines happened, and it's given me a limiting belief, and I've carried it. Yeah. Pick and choose what you carry. Imagine you're walking through life with a bag on your back, and you're picking up other people's opinions and other people's rubbish and other people's, toxic beliefs, and you're putting these stones in your back, and you're throwing them all in your back, and you put your backpack on. I'm giving you permission to drop the backpack, get rid of the stones, tip the stones out. I'm giving you permission to do that. Just go and do it. Not for me, not for Axel, but for yourself. Yeah. There's no benefit to you. What you're carrying, all the weight, doesn't need to be carried. If you look at a human body on a physical level, it's proven scientifically. I can't give you the papers. There's papers out there about it, but any mental stress that you're carrying goes to certain places and you carry it in your body, right? Why, when you go to a chiropractor, do you click in certain places? It's like because your brain pushes things down your spinal cord and you might get tightness in the shoulders, and you might, if you're in fight or flight mode, your shoulders might be up like this because you're in fight or flight mode now, and you might be like that, feel like that, and you're locked in that position now. And then you release these buttons that people can press, and your shoulders will drop, and you'll open yourself up to wider opportunities, and you know what I mean. And the stress in your back goes, and everything goes when you start to work to, okay, how can I make myself in more flow? How can I make life flow to me? Even statements like when you get up in the morning, even statements without being too woo-woo on the audience, like all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. It's just something nice to start the day with.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be this uphill battle. I don't have to battle to do it.
For me, I like to start the morning with some reggaeton. It's like
reggaeton,
Latin music.
Yeah, Latin music.
Yeah. Blasted, dance, like
flow, because it's energy. Because you're moving energy when you're dancing, when you're moving, when you're in that reggaeton, when you start to feel that beat, you're getting your body primed. You're priming yourself for a state of being. That's what you're doing. You're priming yourself for a state of being. All of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory is a prime. Yeah. I'm saying I don't care what you consciously say to yourself, but pick something that's inspiring and that primes you to a state that gets you hyped, that puts you in a state that wants to take you forward to where you want to go to. So you get to choose every day how you start it. You can either start it with problem, someone wants to cancel the mastermind, someone's doing blah, 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 you got to do refunds, blah, 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 all this. You can start it with that, or you can start it with all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. Everything that's meant for me is not going to pass me by. Start to work. It's just even saying those two things make you feel lighter.
Yeah, I just like got up and like I'm all excited now that you're saying that with ease, joy.
All of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. Why wouldn't you say it? Yeah, why wouldn't you say it? It doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah,
it's like, I think life is as easy or as hard as you want to make it in a lot of ways. If you disagree, you're triggered, which means there's something you've got to work on if you disagree with that statement, in my opinion. But you've got, this world's abundant. It's like everything's here for you.
It is. You're right. And I think if you disagree with that, because like I'm just now thinking through like moments in my life when I would disagree with that, and it was not because the world was different. It was because my perspective in that moment was closed in. It was zeroed in on the difficulty, on the problem. And you're 100% right. That's something that I try to do with my friends often, and like with myself. Every now and then I stop and I'm like, yo, we're here, we're in Los Angeles.
You are.
I'm an immigrant. Like I came to America with $70 and a backpack. And now I'm here. Like, I'm here.
It's giving me goosebumps, you just saying that. Because at the end of the day, $70 in a backpack. So my question to this audience then, every one of you, is what's your excuse? Because I went with I saved £6,000, took me 12 months to save £6,000, and I had to sell stuff, sell tools, sell everything, and book a one-way flight to Australia to change my life. You've come from Cuba, you've booked your flight, and you come here with $70 to America. That means then that there's nothing stopping anyone else in this audience from doing it, because we're both sat here in LA. I'm English, you're Cuban. We're both here.
Everything is possible, man. And my brother's story is even crazier. My brother spent like 5 months going across multitude of countries, like
to get here,
dealing with cartels and getting kidnapped and going through like all the borders to make it here. And I remember we had our first podcast. We had it like a week after my brother had gotten here. We sat on that couch and we just talked for like 2 hours, and we were like This is crazy. We are in LA right now. Like Warner Brothers is like 5 minutes down that way. Like, and Frankie, we dreamed of movies. Like I grew up watching The Terminator and thinking of America.
But this takes me back to why I believe manifestation is real. It's because manifestation is the dream. Action creates the reality. Just let that land with you. Manifestation is the dream. Action towards the North Star is the reality. You've created your own reality. You realized whether it was subconsciously, spiritually, mentally, or just in the physical realm, you realized that by making these moves, it would take me to live this reality that I dreamed of.
Yeah.
And you may have not even known it in the consciously, but subconsciously, you were guided here, mate. 100%. Yeah. It's always going to happen. And the way it happens is how it was meant to happen. And the life that you live in, the beautiful life that you live in, the abundance you live in, the fact that you even get to work on one of the best podcasts in the world, at the back end of that, and get to learn from someone like Tom on how to do a podcast and how it's all structured and all this stuff. And you get all these insights. Yeah. You created that.
Yeah. That was a fun story. Like Tom said no to me working for him like 2 or 3 times. He kept saying no. And it was hilarious. And I kept like trying. And I found a way. And everything worked in a very serendipitous way when I was trying to go for that job. And it's one of the hardest places I've worked at, with some of the smartest people, but also some of the most intense people ever in the world. And it's very difficult. Like we don't play around. It's very intense and very stressful.
It's a business for him.
Yeah. But like you said, I've learned a lot and I've seen up close. And I think one of the things that I've learned through working on the show with Tom and with the people that come through is that everyone's story has the same kind of ingredients. Yeah.
Every story that has ever been in a movie has the hero's journey. Every story in everyone's life has the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. You have to go on the hero's journey. The hero's journey is this. You start off, you go along your journey, there's ups, there's downs, you meet a guide. My guide was James Gray. He met me in that boxing gym, that one-to-one boxing gym, and he unlocked more doors than I could ever imagine by getting me to read just a few books and then giving me insights into sales and marketing and this and the other, right? I still speak to this man once a month to this day, right? This was 10 years ago. Nearly 10 years ago, he changed my life in a boxing gym, right? He was my guide, my first guide. Then you go to the next level of your journey. Then you need to meet a new guide, and then you need a new guide and another guide and another guide and another guide. And you meet different guides that guide you on different paths. That is the hero's journey. You are the hero to your own story, but you get to pick the story that you tell yourself. Tell the best story possible, but tell it honestly. So don't ever come to me and tell me that you're self-made, because if I told you today that I was self-made, I'd be discrediting my mum. I'd be discrediting my father. I'd be discrediting the teachers that gave me opportunity, that when other teachers kicked me out of school. I'd be discrediting meeting James Gray. I'd be discrediting boxing and my boxing trainers, all the value that they had in my life. I'd be discrediting all the mentors I've had in business and all the podcast guests and everyone that's changed the trajectory of my life. There is not a man on this planet that could sit there and ever tell you they're self-made. Not one. Because not one of them understands themselves. And the only person that says they're self-made comes from complete ego and lack of understanding of self. Anyone that says to me that they've self-made shows me straight away that they haven't done the work on the other side of the coin that I'm talking about. They haven't done the spiritual side of it, whether it's religion, whether it's breath work, whether it's mushroom journeys, whatever it is, whatever spirituality is to you, that spiritual piece is missing, because the spiritual piece brings you back into yourself, makes you understand that you need other people, you need people to just put you in the right direction, to give you assistance,
Yeah. And it is way sweeter when you win with friends. My friend Reginald has a quote that he has written on his board that says, unshared success is failure. And I think
Just giving me goosebumps again, because you are so right. Because imagine getting to the pinnacle of a mountain that you think's the mountain, which I've been to, when I was fully absorbed by the ego, fully pursuing boxing. I got to the pinnacle of this mountain and I stood there on my own, looking around thinking, and it makes me emotional thinking about it, because when I got there and I looked around and I realized this wasn't my mountain to climb, but this was all climbed to prove a point to him over there. Why, Frankie boy? Why was this necessary? Because you were hurting, mate. And that, I was hurting. Do you know, the whole reason I went around boxing, boxing training was because I felt unloved. I realized that on a breathwork journey.
from who?
From my mum. But here's the thing about that. And I've talked about this before, but maybe not in as much depth, but I always felt a lack of love from my mum, a bit of a disconnection early days. And then it led me through my whole life to wanting to prove things to other people. And I needed to prove stuff. And when I went on this breathwork journey, I kind of felt that I needed to look at her perspective. When I looked into her perspective, I realized that she had a child before me, called Michelle, that had died of spina bifida 7 days after she was born. Then she was told she couldn't have any more children. So then picture the scene. This is where you have to step into how other people must be feeling. Imagine a woman that's told she can't have children. She's had one die before you, being told she's pregnant. She's now in fear. She doesn't know whether the child's going to live, die. She doesn't know whether it's going to be born. She doesn't know whether she's going to lose it. That fear is transmuted to you as in the womb. Fear is transmuted. All energy is transmuted. When you're born, she's a bit distant because she doesn't know, is he going to live? Is he going to die? I wasn't even expecting this. I don't know how to react. I'm still not over this happening to me. That's how she's feeling. Imagine how shit I felt when I realized that I'd resented my mum with zero context as how she must be feeling. I wasn't unloved as a child. That was a story that I told myself. I was very loved. I was very supported. I just hadn't understood her love in the way that she gave it, and hadn't understood how she must have felt. And it broke my fucking heart. And that killed me, man. Do you know what I'm saying? Because how many of us are going through life trying to prove something to someone else, or do this for someone else, or judging other people with zero context as to what they must be going through. Yeah. So the only thing that I really want to stress on everyone that listens to this and has got to this point is, before you judge your mum, before you judge your father, before you judge your life, your childhood and all this stuff, look at it objectively and ask yourself, what were they going through? How were they feeling? What must they have gone through to feel that? Yeah. You know? Rather than have resentment, maybe we should all have more empathy into how others feel. And with that empathy, you unlock a whole new level of self that you couldn't unlock any other way.
Yeah. Yeah, I had something similar happen with my dad, with my father. I didn't meet my father until I was 13. And I have my stepdad, and he's my dad. But my father I'd never met until later. And we only had like a very short relationship, like a couple of years that we were in touch, and then that kind of broke apart. And I did had that same thing that you're talking about, where you are just looking at it from your point of view, and you're judging the person and what they did and how they didn't love you, and like, why the fuck wasn't he there? Like, we lived in the same town. Like, we lived like 20 minutes from each other, and I didn't meet him until I was 13, randomly on the street walking. And I didn't have empathy or acceptance for him until I was put away from my son. So like after I got divorced, about a year later, my ex-wife moved away with my kids. And that destroyed me. That's the worst experience that I've had. And through that, I understood what my father went through. Even though he wasn't as good as a man or a father as I was, what was going through his heart, you know?
Do you not think the universe, the world showed you this so that you could understand that in your life?
I don't. I don't think it works that way. I think we make those connections to make sense of life. I used to believe in God. I grew up religious in the Christian church.
Yeah.
And that changed in my life when I was like, after I came to America a few years after, it was actually studying. I have a minor in theology, like studying the Bible and understanding history and like going deep in all the religions and like all the creeds and what all the religions believe and all that. That's what kind of put everything in perspective to me, to see it as a more practical.
What was your biggest learning when you went through that you kind of gauged from looking at all the religions?
It's shared stories that aim to explain something bigger than us. So I do believe there's something bigger than us, but I believe that it's so big that it cannot be put into
A book.
a book that this is the 100% truth of like, this is it, you know? Once you see all of it, because then you understand cultures and you see how Asians had their own version of higher power. The Mayans and the Aztecs had their own version of higher power. In Egypt, they had their own thing. Americans, we have a tradition that comes from. Once you see, I have an issue where I seek truth, and once I see truth, I cannot unsee it. And that happened with me with religion.
I think there's a lot of esoteric knowledge that is hidden from the masses. And there's a lot of pieces within the religious landscape and the spiritual landscape that I've not even put together in my head yet. There is definitely something bigger than us. I don't know how to quite articulate it in the best way. And I don't think that we're meant to know how to articulate it. I think it's that big, like you say, that there's something way bigger going on that we don't know how to do it. But I kind of believe in the 8 natural laws. You can Google them; it'll tell you the 8 natural laws. You know, similar to what it says in a Bible or a Torah or a Quran or anything like that. How you treat people, how energy works. I believe more with more things on an energetic level.
Yeah. I was opposed to all of that for the longest time. Now because I accept that everything is beyond what I can comprehend, then everything has more validity. It's just like a different explanation.
Yeah.
It's like a different movie that tells that story with the 8 laws, and then someone else might have a different.
One thing that I've learned on this podcast is that it's beautiful to have a conversation where you can disagree and you can have an adult conversation about it. That's the first thing. The second thing is I've got to work on getting more articulate knowledge and more and better wording to describe what I'm trying to get into people's minds. So it's so simple that people can just really get it. Because if I lose people by saying the word manifest, because people think the word's woo-woo, I've got to find a better word to articulate my ideas, because how it's received is important to me, so that you implement it in your life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you have to have a repertoire of knowledge of even words, of language, to be able to fully purpose your idea in the physical, so that people can pick it up what you're running with.
Yeah, it's a skill, and it's also something that sometimes I forget to do, and I'm learning. But, you know, I have watched hundreds, probably thousands of hours of podcasts mixed with my work and like me just loving the medium. And something that I learned from Tom is, and I think this comes also from Jordan Peterson, is we just need to establish the vocabulary before the conversation. So like in your case, manifestation means vision, action, like
Yeah.
so that is very different from what someone else might think manifestation is.
And I'm glad that I took that point during this conversation to clarify that.
Yeah.
But what I want to go a step further and make it easier for everyone. It's my responsibility as a communicator to make it as easy and as simple to understand and execute on what I say, if you so choose to.
Yeah.
And I want to even go a step beyond that and make it so that it doesn't even need explaining. And the way that I think that is done is by getting better words, simpler words that are more divinely and easily accepted, so that we can move through the explaining point so that it can be easily absorbed. Because I'm trying to create content in life that actually goes into your subconscious mind and transforms the reality that you see so you can move yourself forward. So I have to deeply question the wording, the way that I execute, the way that I articulate it, so that you can fully grasp what I'm saying as easily as possible, so that you can take it. Because in my mind, you shouldn't even listen to a podcast unless you can take 1% of it and implement it in your life today. Because it's pointless just listening to podcasts for entertainment. There's no point. You meant to listen and you meant to learn from a podcast.
Yeah, that's something that I'm going back and forth with, Frankie, to be honest with you, because I listen to a lot of podcasts that are packaged in a way to give you a lesson. And bro, then I listen to some other podcasts that is just two random dudes just talking about nonsense. And in the middle of all of that nonsense, some magical thing happens where they
You learn
click.
something, right?
You do. You learn and also share experiences. I think just listening to someone's story, our brain is made in a way that just by listening to that mere story, it triggers something in your brain and it connects points of things that you were missing.
I think you need the story articulated in a way with feeling, so that people can understand the thing that they're meant to implement.
Yeah.
So I think you need the story, then the implementation, then the story, then the implementation.
I'm questioning that more and more and more.
And the beautiful thing about this is there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's like whatever helps you get your best self over to your audience is the best thing for you. Whatever allows the most amount of people to understand in the quickest amount of time what you're trying to say, that's going to benefit them and move them forward in their life, that is all I care about.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong if it takes me further towards that.
Yeah.
I'm not egotistical enough to think I'm right, I know the right way. No.
Yeah.
I'm learning every day. I'm listening to how we're conversing, and I'm analyzing it. I'm like, okay, I could have said that in 4 words rather than 16 words, and it would have landed a lot better. And it's like, I want to get to that level. And I think when you care about podcasting as much as we obviously do, that's a beautiful thing, because we are learning in public. Podcasting is an art where you're always learning in public.
Yeah. The thing is that we do get caught up, at least it happens to me. Like, I'm going to be honest. I want to say the smart thing. Like, I want to talk in a way that is like, oh, wow, like that sounds so good. And then you end up like just saying the same canned answer that you heard somewhere else. And you end up like trying to make your words sound pretty. And I think that's how we end up with the 16 word answer to like a simple question.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like break all of that, because when I started at the beginning, I wanted to like, I was a fan of Tom Bilyeu, and I wanted to like go do the deep research and like have all the perfect questions. And like, I was trying to emulate my mentor and like try to do things like him. And then as I progress on my podcast and I have more and more interviews, I'm going the opposite direction. I'm like, I don't want to have anything planned. I don't want to even know. And I believe that that's how you found, like, just like me telling you about my dad. Like, I had no fucking idea I was going to talk about that today. Not at all. Like, that was not even, like, that's not even something that I think about on a daily.
I like I prefer conversations like this than I do the scripted podcast.
Yeah.
I don't listen to any of the scripted podcasts because I have an opinion that there's more depth and more real raw content in these kind of podcasts.
Yeah.
So I prefer these type of conversations, and all my podcasts on mine are the same, right? The similar thing. They're real raw stories.
Yeah.
But I always make sure that there's actionable insights for the audience so that they can implement it in their life.
Yeah.
And I call them out on the show.
Yeah.
And I think that way I know that then, because I do have and I'll have to question this belief, that I do have a belief that if you're listening or you're reading something or you're watching something, that unless it's just to chill out, there should be some form of implementation on the back of it. And I just think that's a nice thing to do.
Yes, I agree with you. You should definitely keep doing that. I think where I'm finding myself in my journey is I need to not do that.
Yeah.
Just because I need it.
Yeah.
I needed to keep it fun, to keep it light.
Yeah.
I think it's me breaking away from my day-to-day job as a producer on someone else's show that is very well thought out, and Tom is trying to impact people, get them to change their thinking and like empower them, and it's like an amazing thing that we do. And then over here, I want this to be a little bit more like another side of myself, finding stories. Like, I don't want to be in self-development. I want to do an interview with you today, and tomorrow I want to have an interview with a rapper, and then with like a boxer.
Yeah, you don't want to be pigeonholed to it.
Yeah, I want to explore. I want to find the stories. I want to just talk to people. And I was curious, like I had a couple questions for you. Like with your podcast, you said you had done like over 150 interviews.
150 over.
Wow, that's amazing. Like I'm closing on 70 interviews, so I'm like almost halfway to you.
Congratulations! You once you got past 20 episodes, you're in the top 1% in the world.
Yeah, is it that so?
It's because most podcasts do not get past that point.
Yeah, it's difficult, man. It's difficult, like, because people probably think, oh yeah, you have a podcast, you have a lot of money, and like you have your YouTube channel, and like you make no money on this thing until later.
Podcasting is the perfect art of delayed gratification. It's a perfect epitome, because, and Chris Williamson says this, you can't monetize a podcast effectively. Most people, I'd say 99% of people, can't monetize a podcast effectively until they've done 150 episodes.
So 150.
150 is the point where you can start attracting decent level sponsorship. Mm-hmm. Then from 150 to 300, you're just finding your gears, going through the gears, and then you get the perpetual motion. Look at Chris Williamson and what he's achieving with podcasting. Mm-hmm. He's done 600 episodes. He deserves it. He's pumping out 3 a week. The dedication. You've got to look at what the people, to get to 600 episodes, you can either do 1 episode a week, and it can take X amount of time.
Yeah, because that's 50 episodes a year.
50 episodes a year.
Jesus.
So you can either get there in 12 years.
12 years, fuck.
Or you can get there at 3 episodes a week, and you can get there a damn sight quicker. Get there in 4 or 5.
So we need to do more episodes, Frankie.
So it's like, you've got to pick. I've realized in life you have to pick the game you want to play, look at the game, look at how other people are playing it. Tom Bilyeu, for example, he's got a couple of episodes a week going out on his impact theory, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's got a couple of episodes, and he's got health theory and other stuff like that.
Now we mix them all. So we went through a phase of like 3 different shows.
Yeah.
And then we realized that people don't really see the difference.
Yeah.
So we combined them back to one. And now we're doing one episode a week, because we're about to launch this massive video game that the company has been working on for a long time, and it's coming out. Like by the time this podcast comes out, the video game is probably going to be out.
Yeah.
So Tom has been like, the way Tom does his podcast is shy of amazing. Like, he only works on the podcast like such a short amount of time compared to everything else that he's doing. And to me, it's sad because he doesn't get the credit or the visibility on the other work that he's doing on the studio, because people know him for the podcast, but they don't know like the iceberg underneath that and everything that he's pushing. Like we have 50 employees, we have teams all over the world like working on this video game, and like
He's also got educational platform, hasn't he?
we have Impact Theory University, and that's another thing that he's doing.
But he's constantly in the studio filming content, right?
We film as much as we can book people. So depending on the week, sometimes we shoot 2 times a week. He takes a lot of time prepping, and that's one thing. Me seeing him prep for so long, I'm like, I don't want to prep at all. I want to do the opposite. So it goes to my style.
And it all depends on your life path and way you want to move as a podcaster and way you want to move. Like, you know, some people need the prep because perhaps if he didn't prep, he perhaps couldn't ask the questions he wants to ask.
Yeah, for him it works.
But maybe me and you have a natural ability to ask the questions that resonate. So maybe we don't need as much prep. There's no right or wrong answer.
There is not.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, you have to be true to yourself. So with your episodes, like what have been some of your favorite interviews that you have done that you can think of?
Well, here's the beautiful thing about it, and I realized this because I've been asked this question before, and I realized it. And it's not that it's a bad question, but what I realized was I was just about to say an episode that was my best, that I perceived to be my favorite and best.
Yeah.
And then I realized that every episode along this journey has come to me at the right time, and I've learned so much about myself or my ego or what I just every one of them is important to me because it's come to me at the right time. And I now I'm at the point where I can't go, oh, it's this guest, because that does a disservice to all the learning and all the stuff that's gone on this. I can, anyone can go on YouTube now, search the Frankie Lee Podcast and look at all the amazing guests I've had. Some massive guests on there. But to pull out one and to say this is the pinnacle, it's not, because Ryan, I remember I had Ryan Terry around my house, a famous bodybuilder in the UK who's with Gymshark, and I had him and he taught me some stuff. And then I had the founder of Reebok on the show, and he came around my house in England and taught me loads of other stuff. And then I've had people involved with Gymshark, and I've had, people involved with high-end e-commerce brands, and I've had Justin Waller on, had Justin on.
Yeah, Justin was interesting.
Yeah,
for sure.
Interesting. He's got a different view of life than me, and that's okay.
Yeah,
do you know
same
what I mean?
For me. Like we had our disagreements, but I love the guy. Like
I've got nothing against any of the guests.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that to pick one out, I think would do it a disservice. I think there's so much more to it than just one episode, one guest.
I do have a favorite. I have a favorite
of mine or of yours?
Of yours? My show.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And you'll probably get to this one day. I had my son on my podcast.
I actually saw that. I saw that you had him on.
Yeah.
If I had a son right now, 100% that would be my favorite episode too.
Yes.
The only thing close that I could imagine that would be doing a podcast with my niece and nephew. And I said to my sister the other day, I'd like to do a podcast with them for every year of their life now until they're in their 20s.
You should definitely do that. I did one with my son and with my daughter too.
Yeah.
And it was so funny, Frankie, but it was awesome. Like in that moment, I was like, I'm living the dream. Like I get to sit here and have this talk with my kids. And this is going to be invaluable.
Because you can ask your son, how he's feeling. I know your son does jiu-jitsu.
No, that's not. If you saw the jiu-jitsu one, that's another kid that I had on. That is a fighter. So that kid, that's Eli, the future.
The 9-year-old.
He's 9, yeah.
Yeah.
My son, I need to show you my son.
I thought that was your son.
He had like a flower shirt.
Right.
That's the fighter. That's Eli. So Eli is he's ranked like top MMA fighter in the US for children, for like his category.
Yeah.
As a 9-year-old. But no, I had my son Abel. So we did a film with my brother. And then we had the podcast with Abel, and we talked about like our experience doing the film together and his YouTube channel, and like it was very interesting to you know, it's like one of those that you do for you, that you know, lad, this is not gonna get any views. It doesn't
need
matter.
it. Doesn't need it.
No, it's like
it's there's so much more to podcasting than just simply views.
Yeah.
That people don't see. And can I tell you, I did a podcast with a guy called Adrian Portelli. It's one of my most downloaded episodes. It's done 200,000 on YouTube, and it's done hundreds of thousands on Apple and Spotify. But I would have been happy getting 1,000 views on that. It was just an extraordinary episode.
What was his story?
He earns 60 million a year with zero.
Yeah, I watched that one.
With
Okay.
0 employees.
Yeah, that was crazy. He was doing the giveaways and all that.
Yeah. And now, would you think that podcast, if objectively as a producer, would you think that podcast would be the one that got the most views?
Not at all. I was surprised because I went to your channel and I started watching a few just to get ready for the interview, and I saw Sadia, Justin, and then this guy. But like, I remember he had that line at the beginning that says, "There is no ego in business."
Yeah.
And I think because you added that to the teaser, that's my assessment as a producer. Your teaser was great.
Right.
It was about money. It's a young guy making millions with no employee. So it's like a unicorn type setup.
Yeah.
And then he said that business, like, there's no ego in business.
And also he started to, what I found is you can record podcasts with guests and they can sit there for ages and then they can just take off later down the track because the guest goes and does something big. Like, for argument's sake, you know, it doesn't bother me that Sadia goes on Impact Theory or goes on Lewis Howe's podcast.
Well, that helps you
because it helps me, right?
Yeah, you get suggested views.
Because I get suggested views. I get thousands more views because they're on these bigger channels than mine. Doesn't bother me. That a lot of my guests I've discovered early, way before the bigger podcasts have had them on. So I always get trickled down because I get to them early because I got my finger on the pulse a little bit more than a lot of the bigger podcasts have.
Yeah.
Because one, because I truly love the art, and two, because I don't have to be a researcher to know what works well with this thing. And it's just like we're in a constant learning environment. But it's been.
How do you find your people? How do you get to your people? Like in this case, because you're twice the episode count from me. How do you get people to come on your show?
I think, one, I don't do canned messages. I like to send voice notes or emails that are personalized or this, that, and the other. And I like to frame it how I want, what I want them to get out of it. You know, what ask yourself, what do I want? What value can I give this person? And then try and give them way more value than even you can think you can give them. Try and give them that value, and that's how to get people to come on your show and get people moving. It's no different from what you're doing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're on the right path. You've done 70 episodes. If there's someone out there that wants to start a podcast, the first thing you should say to yourself is podcasting the best medium for me? Is it the best medium for me? Because you may be a better writer. You may paint beautiful paintings. You might not be the speaking communicator.
Yeah.
90% of the podcasts I listen to should not be podcasters. They're not podcasters. They're not voice communication, vocal communication. This art that is podcasting isn't for them.
Do you think you can get better at it, and maybe they
You
could work
can
on
get
it,
better at it, but you'll never get to in the top 5 of a country.
Yeah.
You know, and for argument's sake, I've been in the top 5 in the UK. I've been in the top 5 in Australia, and I've been in the top 5 of a load of other European countries.
Wow.
And I'm yet to break into the top 200 in America.
America's hard.
But America's hard.
Yeah.
But you have to build up the velocity and learnings and lessons and guidance before you step into the American market. You know, don't forget. How did Tom do it? Tom cut his learning curve down because he exited a company and then paid to shortcut his learning to get to the top. He could pay for acquisition of guests, not guests.
But he didn't. So he started at Quest doing the interviews.
Yeah.
When he was still at Quest.
So he was learning whilst he was getting paid from his business, and but his exit event gave him enough liquidity to be able to,
Yeah,
to be able to back himself because he's done enough reps.
Yeah.
To be able to back himself with the right studio and the right thing. And sometimes that you might not be able to start like that.
Yeah. Well, the way he started it was a different landscape when he started. So he started Impact Theory 6 years ago, and I think Inside Quest was maybe 1 or 2 years before that.
Yeah.
So 7 years ago, 8 years ago,
He fell in love with the medium of podcasting.
yes. Also, there was no other major podcasts
Yep.
available on YouTube. And then he came out of the gate with full-on studio, TV quality. So that was his competitive advantage.
Cut through, yep.
It was high production and amazing guests.
And now we've got people like Stephen Bartlett and people like Chris Williamson that have raised the bar again.
Yeah.
That arguably in the podcast space at this moment in time are doing some of the best production.
Yes, but what we have found, and I go back and forth with this all the time, and even with my brother, there is a threshold that you get diminishing returns, where you can keep increasing the production quality,
But you don't get any more. Yeah.
you don't get a return on that. Now, that to me is debatable because you have the branding element that is unquantifiable. So this is Lisa Bilyeu and my, we go both back and forth with this because you cannot quantify the fulfillment or happiness that someone gets out of looking at a beautiful image.
Well, you should simply do it the best you can do. With my podcast, on every episode, I'm just trying to produce the best content I can in the time that I'm in.
Yes.
And they have the resources that allow them to produce a totally different level because of the resources that they have. And that's great. And if they want to produce that level, that's phenomenal. Like, that's phenomenal. And it's a gift to be able to do it. And it's just, all I'd say to anyone out there who wants to do a podcast, me, you, or anyone else, is just do the best that you can in the time that you're in. And that applies to every area of your life.
Yeah, I have had to accept that I need to be okay with a good level of quality for production because I come from film. So for me, I would shoot it in 4K. I would light it different. So I would need this camera, this light, that light, this. So then I get bogged down by the pursuit of high production value. And then you look at Joe Rogan, he has like 2 ugly cameras and it's just like this, and it's the top podcast in the world. It has no production quality. So then it's like, does it really matter? So my brother is the one that keeps me at bay with like, yo, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It's quality. It's quality of conversations. It's you know, what we're shooting in now and the quality that you're putting on here and the production value of this is more than good enough to take you to the level that you want to get to.
Yeah.
And it's just about being kind to yourself when you're on a journey like this. You know, we can't compare ourselves because Tom's been on a different journey to us and made money vastly more money than we have in business that allows different conversations to be had. Same with Stephen Bartlett. Same now with Chris Williamson with some of the sponsorships he's got. Allows that production quality. And when our time comes to be where we can choose to do that, we'll choose to do that.
Yeah.
And if that's our choice, isn't it? But it's like you can't cheat the reps that have to be done to get to the level. They've done their reps, they've earned their stripes, and that's why they deserve all the success and all the abundance that they're getting from it. And all me and you have to do is do our reps and do what we need to do, and we can do similar things in whatever version of Axel's way or Frankie's way. And it won't be a copy of what they're doing because it'll be our own flavor of a similar narrative that we are trying to spin for ourselves. And that is what life is all about. It's not about the comparison. We can all compare. I could sit here for hours and tell you the great things about Tom, and you know, I'd love to do that like Stephen, or I'd love the way Chris Williamson started with the same way as I did. 600, 700 episodes now with a Yeti desk mic in the middle of a table. The difference is he started 2 or 3 years before I started. That's the difference. And he's put out more episodes. That's the difference. Yeah. We can all get to everyone that loves the art can get to the same level. It's just like, are you willing to play the game for 10 years or are you not?
Yeah. And enjoy it. I think the biggest thing is enjoying it. And I learned this from my brother a lot. Like whenever he does he doesn't give a fuck. Like my brother is like, I love him for that because I'm more neurotic and I overthink and I try to like
try to channel it in.
strategize and like I try to make sure that I'm making the right move. And if I do this, it leads to that. Like I'm trying to play chess all the time. And then my brother is the balance to my neuroticism.
You need that.
He's more like, yeah, just like, let's enjoy it. Like, let's do it. Like,
just enjoy it. But the key word being, enjoy it.
yeah. And I'm getting into that mode, frankly. Like this year,
to do it all without enjoyment is you are wasting life. You know what I'm saying?
I'm learning how to do that in life and just go with the flow a little bit more. That's very hard for me to accept, like being honest. And I need to flow into that too. I can't go all in on that.
Perfection holds you back from your ultimate success.
But perfection is also what drives my hunger for excellence. So I can't let it go completely. I just need to
know where to apply it.
Yes, know when to apply it and know when something good is good enough, because beautiful things also come from you pushing and having unrealistic expectations and saying, no, it has to be better, it has to be better, it has to be better. I don't want that to ever go away. It all depends on what phase of your life or your journey in that venture you are. If you are being bogged down by you don't have enough volume, then forget about the complexity. Make it as simple as possible. Get it out as soon as you can. If that's not your issue, if you have the volume and the momentum going and now you're wanting to step it up and move into excellence, that's when you start moving towards getting better equipment, better technique, all of that.
So I'm moving towards now in my journey more of I've been a traveling podcast with decent level of production, but in order to have it even to this level right now, or to go beyond this level, I need to have a regular studio, a regular place, a set down environment. I'll probably either end up putting that in LA or Dubai. I haven't decided yet, but that's something I will build to make.
Put that in LA.
But you know what I mean? Like that's something you've got to do and got to accept. There's going to be a cost of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what do you see in the future, like for your next 150 episodes? What's the vibe?
Just enjoy it and just try and every week get 1% better. 1% better. Learn from people like yourself that are working on top podcasts. Have no ego about it. Understand that there's people out there that have vast knowledge in the space. I mean, one thing I've learned recently is the fact of like, you know, why am I trying to talk to these potential advertisers on my podcast? Why don't I just give an agency 20% and just let them handle the whole stuff? Because I'm not as big as a you know, I don't want to have an employee like Tom does to deal with that, or like Stephen, or like, you know, Chris Williamson. I just want to be able to hand that off. And at my level of the game, when I'm trying to come up in the game, the sponsorship money would help, but not if you can't manage it, not if it's costing you time and it's not my game. Mm-hmm. So what I've learned is play games that you're the best at. You play those games, and the games that you aren't the best at playing, the editing, outsource it. The studio, outsource that. The sponsorship, outsource it. Outsource what you're not good at and focus on your core key skill, i.e. book guests, record podcasts. That's my game. In the next 150 episodes, I'm going to try and get to that 150 next reps in a lot faster time frame than I got to this first 150. So if I'm in a place like LA or Dubai, I could get to 150 reps in a year.
Yeah, because you can do 3 a week. Because that's what it will take. It will take 3 episodes a week. So the booking side is brutal. That's the hardest part, because even for Tom's show, it takes us months to get people, and the higher you move up, the harder it becomes, because those people now have 20 other commitments that are way ahead of having a sit down conversation with you. And it's a big chunk. Like today, we're probably going to spend like a couple hours here talking, plus whatever time it took you to get here and the time it took us to come here and set up and all that. So it's a huge time commitment. But the beautiful thing is that
there's 12 hours in this.
Yeah, but I heard this from someone. I don't remember who, but this got me to like prioritize making the podcast. I remember this one guy that said that when you put out your content, you're actually contributing to your immortality. You're putting your thoughts and ideas on people's heads at scale while you sleep. And it appears to people that you never stop working, because our brain cannot differentiate between watching a video and having the conversation once you listen to enough. This interview, people will listen to it. And the weird thing is, the same way that other people have influenced us, now we're influencing other people.
It's the thing I love about podcasting and this medium is it's leveraged work. I like everything to be leveraged now. That's why my business is all online. That's why, you know, I don't have any fixed locations. So it's why the podcast,
everywhere.
Because the podcast I can have episodes 60 odd could be listening and healing someone's mind right now, but I'm not. But the energy I put into that is recorded and encapsulated and captured in time, and it just works. And it works like an asset. It goes to work every day. Media and code. You got to think media and code. How can I get media and code to work for me every day?
Yeah, I'm on the media side, so I'm trying to get that work. I know that you have your app, like web software thing, the removal. Tell me about that. Like, what's the offer?
It's contentremoval.com. Simply this: I remove online content for mainly celebrities, brands, influencers. And people that are facing any online content, so images, videos, search results, fake accounts, YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. We remove it from the internet for people at scale.
So you go and hunt down, like if someone takes my podcast and they start taking clips or pieces of it and putting it on their show.
We could remove it, but I have a lot of people that pirate my show, but I just let them do it because it actually helps me with exposure. They're actually doing work for me. They're workhorses for me. Anyone that takes my podcast, cuts it up into clips and throws it on their account, I couldn't care less, because them getting views just puts my face more out there on the algorithm. Just use it, and in fact I encourage it. Steal as much as you want.
Do you think it could be of damage if they start cutting one piece with another piece and like making you say things that you didn't say?
Yeah, of course. And if things like that do happen, we can remove it.
But the risk of that is very low.
But in the grand context of things, obviously I will protect my intellectual property and protect my assets where I have to. But if someone's just cut a clip that's inspirational to them, put it on an Instagram account, I'm not going to go after them.
Yeah, I'm starting to get that now. I think because the podcast is growing, now I'm getting people all the time. Like every week I get like a dozen people sending me clips that they made for my show, and it's so fun. Like it feels so good, because you're right. Like they're doing work for you to help you.
And also there might be a 16-year-old on the other side of the scale that's using your content to improve his editing skills. And I don't want to stop that, because my whole podcast is to encourage people to move forward, to move their life further down the track. So I don't want to discourage that. You know, that you got to be mindful of the fact that, you know, if that's a source of inspiration to them and then they're cutting it, and I think that's a great thing. I think it's a phenomenal thing.
So now with the company, tell me about starting that, running that. How does that change your whole perspective and you moving from carpentry, boxing?
So I was at this reputation management company, and then I wanted, because I was such a good salesman there, I wanted to obviously get a bit of a buy-in to ownership of the company, and it just wouldn't happen. So I fell out with the owner, long story short, because I wanted a way to not just earn money that was taxed, to actually have a piece of ownership. And when I was on a call to a client at the time, who was a big brand, they said to me, it changed my life again. They said to me, Frankie, rather than burying this content with reputation management, wouldn't it be easier to remove it? And I said to them, what do you mean content removal? And they went, yeah, why can't it be like content removal? And I was like, content removal. So I went on to GoDaddy and I typed in content removal, and contentremoval.com came up, and it was $650, and I paid $650 for that. But that domain name's worth 50, 100, 200 grand now. It's worth a lot of money. It's an aged domain name, and aged domain names that rank really well, especially for keywords like content removal, are very valuable. So the domain name alone alone is worth, you know, a lot of money to me. And I've registered it for like 20 years or something like that, you know, so it's my property. I've locked it up. It is what it is. But I basically thought, right, I left this company because of that fallout, because I wasn't going to get paid. I thought I can sell anything now because I've learnt the art. And what I realized is I should go into this content removal thing. So I built a one-page website on Wix, content removal. There's no AI back then, so I had to type out what content removal was, and, you know, rewrite a few bits of other people's content around similar people that are doing things in the world, the biggest websites. Made this Wix web page with a chat on it and a mobile phone number, and slapped that on the internet. And then I cold emailed and DM'd celebrities. I realized that after a few days, I did a few, took on a small few removal clients, like reviews and all this kind of stuff. And then I was learning on the job, because I didn't know how to remove content. I was learning, I was taking on jobs. And I realized these people are too small. Like I want to deal with big fish. So I became the content removal brand that looked after celebrities and brands. And I just went to everyone in the top of the fitness industry, and I started to tell them I could remove this content and do this and do that and do this. And I started to sell them deals, but I sold them yearly deals. So inside the first month of content removal, I'd already signed $500,000 worth of yearly client subscriptions in three clients. $500,000. 500,000 US in three clients. I was looking after, at the time, I'll tell you two of them. One of them I was looking after, no, in fact, I can't tell you that one. I was looking after like a big brand called sweat.com as a corporate client. And that client alone was paying me $132,000 a year.
And what did the service entail?
Removing content that damaged their brand. So fake Instagram accounts, fake web pages, fake content of their guides that were sold online. It took me 3 or 4 weeks to sign this deal. But this deal changed my life, because I didn't even know how to remove content.
Then you went and figured it out afterwards?
So I figured it out afterwards. So what I did to sign the deal, the first deal I ever did for 132 grand, what I did was, they gave me 11 pieces of content. I said to them, if I remove 5 pieces of content for free, that unlocks this contract. Is that a deal? Shook on it, signed on it. So I knew when I removed 5 pieces of content that it unlocked 132 grand. And I did that with every client I ever worked with. So I had proven removal. So I got them to give me 5 to 10 pieces of content. And I said, when I remove 5, it unlocks the contract. And that's how I did it. That's how I scaled it. That's how I moved forward. So inside a month to 60 days, I had 500,000 committed.
Okay, I'm in the wrong business. I need to start removing content.
It's a lot more difficult than people give it credit for. Don't forget, I went relentlessly after those 5 pieces of content to unlock that contract. And when you get to 4 pieces and you're struggling on that 5th piece, and you keep going, you're like, when the day that piece dropped and it unlocked that 132 grand, I was like, this life-changing again, life-changing. Because you've just gone from earning top end 16 grand a month as a sales guy to now 132 grand in one lump comes into your bank account. You see what I'm saying? Life-changing. And that's online business. Everyone should be moving towards doing more online.
Yeah, I definitely need to move into that. I think what keeps me is I get really excited with things really quick. And if it was up to me, like my brother tells me all the time, okay, this is like the 13th company that we want to start. So I struggle with that. So I need to stay in content. And that's where I'm putting my bet on content. So we want to start a distribution company, and we want to distribute films and market them, acquire films, market them, put them on platforms and distribute that. And that's how I think I'm going to build my massive wealth that would allow me to make films and do all of that. Because making movies is a very complicated business, and it gets trickier every time.
Yeah.
Right now we have the writer strike, the actor strike. The streaming companies are fighting over each other. Apple and Amazon are pumping money into content because they don't have a real business model. So they don't need to make money with their content because they have their other business, and that's like an advertising spend for them. So that makes the whole system go out of whack. And I don't know what the future is going to be for media. You have YouTube. Kids don't watch movies anymore like they used to. So it's very complicated. But that's where
I would argue that YouTube is the GOAT and always is going to be the GOAT now. I think it's moving towards it.
Yes, but there is a user behavior that they haven't been able to crack yet. When you want to watch a movie, where do you go? When you want to watch TV, like when you sit down with your girlfriend,
you're probably going to go to Netflix, aren't you?
Yeah. So Netflix has that user behavior on lock, and YouTube it's a different
hasn't got it yet. But I have bought movies on YouTube and watched movies on YouTube. But I think it's a very expensive way of buying movies. When they make it a lot cheaper, then I think it could be the everything app for video.
It could be, but there is something in our brains that when we go to YouTube, we're not thinking of a TV show. And the way the app works, it wants to give you short bursts of entertainment. Or now they're with podcasts, what they have discovered is the passive listening, where you just hit play while you're on a walk or driving or whatever, and you're doing a different type of experience. But most people don't even watch the phone when they're listening to our podcasts. They just like play it in the background. So it's tricky. And
it was a weird decision for me when Spotify put video on their app. I just didn't see what sense.
Yeah. Do you use it?
No.
Because I upload my podcast to Spotify. You can upload the video, the same video that you upload.
Oh yeah, 100% you can upload it, but it just takes a lot more time. It's a lot more time consuming. And when I surveyed my listeners, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. For me, I'm doing it as just set it and let it be. I have no listenership in Spotify or audio whatsoever. Like I have no downloads. I haven't paid attention to that either because I don't listen to podcasts anymore. I watch them all on YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's something.
And you've gone YouTube first. I mean, I do have a big listenership on Apple and Spotify, and my listenership on Apple and Spotify is arguably bigger than YouTube. But my YouTube is growing at a phenomenal rate now. I feel like I've started to get some momentum with that.
Do you make more money on the podcast side than on the YouTube side?
No, I make more money out of YouTube than I do out of the podcast.
And your YouTube is smaller than your podcast. So imagine when you double your numbers on YouTube.
Well, so here's the thing, what I've learned with podcasting. Podcast sponsors invariably will pay more CPMs for the listenership on Apple and Spotify. But then there are other companies now that just want the clips as well from the YouTube video of their brand. So it's like it's
competing.
I think you got to be as big as you can be on both.
100%, yes, and not let any money on the table on either side.
Yeah,
I do believe that in the future there will be a switch where the audio podcast sponsor money is going to move completely to video, and that's going to be dry land. It's not the case yet. Right now, the sponsors on the audio side are spending a ton of money there, more than they do on YouTube. But I think that will change in the future, just because of the tracking capabilities and the impact of video. You cannot deny it.
The tracking capabilities are great though with audio, because you just type in promo code Axel 2025. You know what I mean? And
I can have different ad placement with video on video.
But I like with audio that you can dynamically place the ads after the episode's been recorded.
That is amazing.
Right?
With your sponsors, yes.
And if you could dynamically place them on YouTube as well, when they do dynamic placement on YouTube in video, that's now we're having a different conversation.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that YouTube wants to control that revenue. So YouTube allows you to do dynamic ad placement of the ads that they sell.
I'm on about of the ads that they sell. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm on about of our ads
I don't think they will ever give you that.
Yeah.
Because remember, YouTube gets 30 cents on the dollar of every AdSense spend. So why would they give you that?
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I understand completely, but it's just an interesting game. It depends how they want to play it.
Yeah. How do you feel about all the social medias and YouTube, and have you experienced any censorship or any issues with that, or
Not so much censorship. I think I've just got to get better at content to be able to cut through the noise. I don't believe in all these shadow bans and all this stuff. I think it's all created in your mind to give you an excuse as to why your content's not doing as well as it should be. Well, the reason is because it's not good enough. So I need to improve the content. I need to get better. I need to get 1,000 times better than I am this year, next year, and from now this next 12 months to get anywhere close to where I want to get to. Have to. That's it. That's the way I see everything now. It's like I just got to get better. I've got to get better. There's something I don't know right now. Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of things you can do in the back end to improve. There's a lot of A/B testing that we do. We spend so much time on Tom's show maximizing every single piece of what you can control. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the conversation.
Yeah.
I can feel it. Like I would have a shoot, and the same happens with my podcast, not equally. With my podcast, because
when you're producing someone else's show, you feel it differently.
When you are at different scales of subscribers, it's a different game. So right now, in your level and in my level, you're way ahead of me, but you're still under a subcategory of scale that the quality of your episode is not as relevant yet because you don't have the scale. You see that play out more in a big channel like Impact Theory because we do have the numbers. So when the episode comes out, it goes out to a large sample of people, and that's where the quality of the conversation, and you need alignment of thumbnail, headline, the guest, the themes, the opening question, and there's like this sequence. All of that, when it works well, depending on what is happening in the ecosystem with the algorithm, and if the conversation is good, then it blows up. And there I can place bets and feel confident about that conversation was not relevant. It didn't feel like relevant, so it won't do as well. But on a small channel like us, the sample set is so small. More in my case for my podcast, like I could have a great episode. If that guest doesn't have a multitude of points of contacts in the algorithm by being on other shows, it won't click. And that happened with my interview with Justin. That was the one that break through for my channel. But then all my other interviews, they gain very little views, even though this interview is blowing up. And I think I had a combination with him being a very hot person, but also our interview was very interesting because I saw other channels that were like triple my size, and my interview with Justin is like double or triple their numbers. And it's just because of the dynamic in the conversation.
Yeah.
So every now and then that makes a huge difference. But when you're small, having the big name guest is going to do such a huge pull.
Going to propel you,
Yeah.
For sure, mate. I agree.
What about for you? Can you gauge like when an interview, like you love it and you're like, I can predict like this many views in a week or 2 weeks?
I don't think you can predict anything. I really don't. I think it all comes down to like literally just interview people that you resonate with.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
That's interesting. For us, no, we do the whole, we have metrics and we strategize and we have like numbers.
And this is what I need to get better at. Mm-hmm. So
I don't think you should. I think because you are the person doing the interview, you are doing the right thing. You're focusing on the guest and you're focusing on having the good conversation.
Yeah, I'm not. I realize as you scale, things have to change.
Yeah.
I think I need a combination right now where I'm at, where I need to book bigger guests, bigger names, and be interested in what they're talking about, and have the right conversations with them to get the most out of it. Yeah. It's like it's a multifaceted game.
It is.
No one's ever gonna have all the game right. You know what I'm saying? It's a very multifaceted game.
Yeah. Well, frankly, this has been an amazing time talking to you, man. This was way more interesting than I ever thought I could make this interview. So
no, mate, I appreciate your time, and I just want to say, like, congratulations on all the success that you're having. You changed your life by changing your location, and I'd urge every single one of you that listens to this podcast, listens to this episode, to, if you want to change your life in the fastest way now, just change your location.
For sure. Awesome, man. Well, guys, thank you so much for checking in for this episode. I hope you love it. And if you did, send it to a friend. And if you can, check out this other interview over here. I'm pretty sure you're going to like it. We'll see you in the next one.